I'm going to tell you that British Columbia is having a big impact. This is their numbers, and we could have a whole presentation on what these numbers mean to our industry. I'm going to switch that before you get that picture, you BC person here. Um, Production estimates for 2020, who knows? It's foolish to predict what next year are going to be, but I'm going to do it. If we have minimal winter injury, normal pollination, no drought, no excessive temperatures, which was, that was 2019. Um, if we had 153 million pounds in 2019, we're not going to have the increase next year that we had this year. But if established fields produce similar or likely a little less than the 2019 levels, there's still going to be increased production in young fields in all growing regions. And I'm thinking we could easily have, it's reasonable to expect to have an 8% increase in overall production, which would be 165 million pounds in 2020. That's a reasonable expectation. And again, we have a lot of caveats that we have to get through, but we could have 165 million pounds in 2020. I just want to point out, Whatcom County is still the leading producer of blueberries. The county's got over 7,500 acres. 15% or so is not yet fully bearing. I estimate 76 million pounds, up from 60 million pounds in 2018. So the big increase we had was mostly fueled by what happened in Whatcom County. But if you saw what happened in British Columbia, that is a clue. I mean, they had a bumper crop, and so did we. But production was up in every single location in our state. Hey, and guess what? Whatcom County is still planting a lot of blueberries. So everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people said, I'm not, a lot of people are not seeing the returns they would like out of raspberries. And so Adam Infield, I'm going to quote him. He said this at a commission meeting. There could have been as much as 1,000 acres of blueberries planted in Whatcom County last year that had been in raspberries. There are some other folks that say, oh, it's not 1,000 acres, but maybe it's 750, 800 acres. So whether it's 750, 800, or 1,000, there's still a lot of blueberries going in. But guess what? Franklin County, Benton County, Lewis County are planting a lot of blueberries. Skagit is currently the third biggest blueberry producing county after Whatcom and Benton, but Whatcom and Benton counties represent 75% of production, something. It's a big number. But with the plantings that are going on in Franklin County, eventually Franklin County will surpass Skagit as the third biggest area of production. 25% of Eastern Washington is not at full capacity. And what's crazy is like that number, 25%, has been at that number for several years because they just keep planting. And the yields are 20 to 25,000 pounds per acre at maturity, even for the organic fields. We also are the leading producer by a country mile for organic blueberries. And there's one new farm that claims it's going to produce 32 million pounds of organic blueberries, and plants are in the ground, but they haven't picked any yet, and they're not done planting the amount of ground that the ground is prepped, but they're not done planting for the area that is required to produce 32 million pounds. But they're going to put in a processing facility, and they are planning to have capacity for more than 32 million pounds. Planting has accelerated in the past 2 years. There's over 1,000 acres a year going in. I can come up with ground that is prepped or being prepped for planting next year on 2 farms. That's over 1,000 acres, and that's just on 2 farms. So, and this over 1,000 acres a year is going to continue for at least 2 more years, just on plans that I know about, and most people don't tell me when they're going to plant. So production is going to increase for years to come. I just want to point out that overwhelmingly, the growers are in Western Washington. I want to point out that 60% of blueberry growers are in Whatcom County. Behind me are a projection of some numbers. Don't get too wigged out about this. This is just me estimating, me projecting. But if you look at this is acres in the ground right now, acres in the ground, and this is yields per acre. And you come up with this number here when everything that's in the ground is fully bearing. Also, that does not include what's going to be planted. These numbers are what the numbers would be if everyone would just stop planting blueberries. So I want to show you, I picked 2006 because that was the year that I took over running the Washington Blueberry Commission. And here's our numbers over time. Now this is in italics. This is, a projection, and this is the rate of change over time. Not over time, the rate of change per year. Since 2006, if you average it up, it's 14% a year. It's crazy. That's just crazy for this length of time to have an average increase of 14%. And our assessments are 4.10 cents a pound. This is what our assessments has been like. And I'll point out, this average was 14% over the last 13, 14 years. If we assume the rate of production, the rate of increase goes down. If we assume a 10% change, by 2025, we're over 250 million pounds. Now, we can hit 250 million potentially, even if we stop planting. Another thing I want to point out is this is the budget for the Blueberry Commission when I took over in 2006. This could be the budget in a few years. I'm going to come back to that point. But this is, if you put those together in one graph, that's what it looks like. And just so you know, it goes out this way. What will this supply of blueberries do to demand? And more importantly, what will it do to price? I'm gonna let John Shelford handle that. He's talking after me. But I'm just gonna say very simply, things are gonna be challenging, particularly in conventional processed blueberries. And that is overwhelmingly our biggest sector. I look at the industry as having 4 sectors: organic and conventional, fresh and processed. Our biggest sector is conventional processed. Our next biggest is organic fresh. Our next biggest is conventional fresh, and then organic processed. And here's the thing. This is the reality is the Blueberry Commission has very, very limited ability to influence the market. And so we can't fix things. But there are some things that can be done. Now, we have a very close association with the North American Blueberry Council and the U.S. Highbush Blueberry Council. There is a new guy in town, figuratively speaking, Casey Cronquist. He just was hired in July. And I'll tell you, I have had more calls, more emails, more interaction with that guy since July than I have from the USHBC since I started this in 2006. Alicia Adler went from being a part, she spoke at this meeting last year, from being a part-time consultant to now I think she's full-time, and she's got moved up as vice president. So there's some new leadership there. There is some new energy, and I'm not criticizing the Mark Vallada, but this new guy is right now he's on fire, and he's doing all the right things, and he's shaking some things up. He's heard some concerns in our industry about people wanting to take action on imports. And, you know, we're having a teleconference with state managers with Casey on Monday. And anyway, this guy gives me hope. He's working on a new strategic plan. He's trying to get more people to be involved in the North American Blueberry Council. He's got a plan. We've never had that much of a voice in Washington, D.C. We have a lobbyist that basically just reports things back to us, but he is going to have the blueberry industry be more active in representing our interests in D.C. They've got a new promotional campaign. They're going to spend $7 million on domestic and export promotion, another $500,000 on food service, a focus North Asia, that's Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand. They're going to work on a new way to track exports, imports by state and region. It's interesting that we don't have a very good handle on what exports and imports are. Our next meeting is on March 3rd and 4th. It's going to be in DC. And for the first time, they're going to have people like me and growers to actually go visit legislators. So anyway, we have the North American Blueberry Council and the U.S. High Bush Council helping us out. Another thing I just want to mention in my laundry list of issues I'm going to tackle, what is more remarkable to me than the volume of blueberries that we're producing is that demand has kept up with those blueberries. The price has softened, but there is still unmet, untapped needs for blueberries. Without going into details, I'll tell you there is a process handler that's looking for additional millions of pounds of blueberries. Don't know the price, I'm not going to get involved with that. I don't know the terms, but if someone is looking for to move some extra blueberries, let me know. I'll line you up with them. When I mentioned when our production is going up like this and our assessments is tied to volume, our assessments are going to go up. And I mentioned that we had a $73,000 worth of assessments in 2006. This year, we're going to be $600,000, and we're heading to $1 million. The board feels like we're facing some challenges in this industry. We've got more money coming in, and we're going to have even more money coming in, and we're wanting to re-examine how we do some things and wondering if we're putting our resources in the best right places. I'll tell you, historically, we've put 50% of all of our funds into research. We recently made a decision 2 years ago to kind of cap research and put more money into export market development. And we are going to have something we've never done before, is have kind of a strategic planning meeting and do nothing but just talk about what we should be doing. And we don't want the board alone to be doing this. We want other people from the industry, more on the grower side of things, to work with us to guide us on what we should be doing differently. So if you know somebody, let me know. Henry, this next one is for you. I just want to point out that our assessments are 1/5 the size of the Washington Red Raspberry Commission, 4/10 cents a pound. It's one of the lowest assessments of any state organization, blueberry organization in the U.S. And as I mentioned, we're looking to figure out some ways to better help the industry. Right now, we have committees for research, promotion, export, and then food safety and labor. Maybe we need to be doing some work in some other areas. We have a small in-state, historically it's been a fresh promotion. I want to point out, this is since 2006, this is how we've spent our money. You can see that our budget has gone up. That's the same slope as our production. This line is research. This is promotions, export. This is administration, and this is the money that we spend on outreach and grower education. this is a summarized budget for 2020. This is a proposed budget. We will adopt our budget on February 4th, but this is the amount that we spend on our in-state promotion. This is market access. This is a promotional effort for the Philippines. We have $15,000 set aside for that, but we got a specialty crop block grant. Thank you, Washington State Department of Agriculture. We have another $60,000 of grant money to spend in the Philippines, 30,000 in Vietnam, 50,000 in Singapore and in Malaysia. Research, 250,000. Northwest Berry Foundation, 4,000. That's for the small fruit update. This is for the Northwest Small Fruit Center. Administration, 98,000. Contingency and outreach. It turns out that this number, we generated this number before we knew what our assessments were, and we're going to actually, this number is going to increase a fair amount. So, like I said, this is a proposed budget, and it's going to get bigger. I just want to point out that our administrative costs have declined from 19% to 14.7% and are increasing at less than half the rate of our assessment growth. When it comes to promotions, folks might be thinking, well, why don't we just put all of our money into promotions? What we want to point out is the U.S. High Bush Council has a promotional budget of $7 million, and they really have the lead on doing promotions, but we still do some. We have Avado PR, they're based in Seattle, and historically we had been doing in-state fresh blueberries, but we're increasing our in 2019 we started promoting frozen blueberries, and we're increasing our focus on blueberries. But bear in mind, we give Avado $30,000, and we have another $1,000 we spend on buying blueberries to use in a promotional effort. Here are some things from that organization. They gave me these slides yesterday. You know, 307 million media impressions. The PR value is 243,000. These are some of the magazines that they have got Washington Blueberry articles in. We had been teaming up with a chain of cupcake stores, but we switched to hipster ice cream stores to do some blueberry promotions. I guess we're still doing the hipster cupcakes too, as well as the ice cream. So a lot of social media and press events. There's a lot of these food events in the greater Seattle area that we give out blueberries to, and we do some promotional efforts at these events. Social media. Also, we gave $8,750 to support the Costco publicity campaign to support the triple berry blend out of Kirkland. We did this in concert with the Washington Red Raspberry Commission and a number of processors. This is me over here. I do a lot of things, like you can't see the blueberries in here. This is a Seattle radio station, so I go over and try and talk to the press and do some promotional activities for blueberries. 42% of our money last year, or in 2019, went to support research. Bear in mind, the commission formed in 1969. It's one of the oldest commissions in the state, and the purpose for it was to fund research. Specifically, they were feeling that they were getting hammered by mummyberry. Some things haven't changed, and it's largely been a research funding commission ever since. We have a research committee that sets the priorities, ranks the proposals, make recommendation to the full commission. This is our biggest, most active commission, and interestingly enough, there's not a single commissioner on that committee, and but they do a lot of the heavy lifting. In 2019, we funded 13 projects for $252,000. You look at what we've funded. It's kind of interesting. The price tag per project just creeps up over time. It's getting more expensive to do research. It's kind of interesting. We've gone from 185,000 to 250,000, and actually the number of projects we funded has declined. It's kind of interesting. When we started in 2006, there were 4 projects for $17,000. They were $4,250 back in 2006. Leighton Overson is the chair of our research committee. He does a very good job with that. This is a list of the projects that we funded. Cold hardiness, this is something the most important in Eastern Washington. Organic controls for SWD, pollination, nitrogen cutoff in Duke, a new way to control SWD without having any MRLs. We did conventional organic mummyberry botrytis control, control and SWD without MRL violations, soil fertility study, mites in blueberries, a non-chemical way to control spotted wing Drosophila, mummyberry, leaf rollers, and two breeding projects were proposed for funding. The interesting thing is this: we funded every single proposal that we wanted to fund. We had all the money to fund all the proposals that we wanted to fund, which, by the way, means we're not getting enough research proposals. I also want to point out that the Blueberry Commission, in cooperation with the Potato Commission, have an agreement to create a blueberry potato pathology position at WSU Mount Vernon. Tobin Peaver is retiring, and Debbie Inglis, who is a plant pathologist in potatoes, has retired, and those positions were not going to be filled. And we can't handle not having a small fruit pathologist. And so we're going to give $200,000 from our reserve fund in 2020 to WSU, and then $33,000 a year for the next 3 years, so a total of $300,000. That is being matched by potatoes, and it's going to be, and WSU is, Scott's going to talk more about this at 9:45 or something like that, and so he will talk more about this, but I just want to, he gave me his slide, one of the slides from his presentation, but I wanted this because there's a WSU logo, there's a WSU slide, and this is going to happen. The person who takes the money from WSU just about tackled me yesterday and said, we need to get their name on a piece of paper that this is going to happen, but this is going to happen. So this is a good deal for us. So anyway, this is a good deal. An area that has been, when Brian Sakuma was chair, he made a focus of starting an effort to try and get markets opened up. Some markets are opening up, and now we're switched to, not switched, we have expanded to start doing some market development work. Washington's teamed up with California and Oregon on a joint project to get into these locations early. And in some cases, the West Coast may get in earlier than the rest of the United States. This effort this year will be expanded to include Indonesia and Thailand. We just obtained access to Vietnam in February of 2019. That was a big deal, but I got a whole bunch of slides to talk about that later. We are going to gain access to the Philippines before the 2020 harvest season. So we're gearing up to do a big promotional effort in that country. We are in year 2 of an effort to get, India is open to blueberries. You can ship blueberries to India, but there's a 44% tariff, which effectively keeps us out of that marketplace. But we're working on an effort to get that tariff reduced to maybe 10 or 15%. And what's interesting is when we do that, and Washington State is doing this, we got a special crop block grant, but this will be good for the whole country. It also would take that tariff down for everybody else in the world too. So British Columbia is going to come in on our coattails, but so is Chile, and so is other people. And so what we've done is we reached out to the politicos in Canada and Chile and are getting them to help us lobby the Indian government to do this. Now, this has been done for cranberries and California nut crops and a few other places. So this has been done, but it's one thing that we're doing to try and open up another market. And this is one of our top priority. And so here's what I'm proposing for 2020. I got to be careful with this. The board hasn't approved this. They know that I'm pushing for it. But this is what I hope to do. We got $60,000 especially crop block grant plus our 15,000. We're going to promote organic, conventional, fresh in the Philippines, Malaysia as a processed conventional effort. And this is something to go into Malaysia, you have to be halal certified, and not just halal certified. There's a certain kind of halal certification, and very, very few processors have this. And as a result, you do not see processed blueberries going into Malaysia. Malaysia is open. It's only a 5% tariff, but we have a couple of processors that are halal certified. I went over there, and that market is ripe for us. Singapore, we've got access duty free, and we're going to push fresh and frozen. There's a company there. What's initials? NTUC. It's kind of like a Costco for them, and they carry a triple berry blend. They have a SKU for frozen blueberries that they want to use, but they've never bought any frozen blueberries, and they're all set up to take it. They just need someone to work with them, and so we're gonna work with them. Vietnam, that was such a big deal. Fresh went in there so big, so heavy, so successful, but they don't have a concept of processed or frozen blueberries. So I want to do a processed blueberry effort. There's a guy we're working with over there. He just this week he did these cooking schools for dairy, but we want to go to some cooking schools, introduce chefs to how to use frozen blueberries, and teach them how to use that product. You'll see some slides in a few minutes of the success we can have when we work with another state. That was so successful in my mind. We've asked Oregon and California to cooperate on this effort. They've expressed interest in cooperating, but they're trying to figure out, how that would work. The Washington, Oregon, and California Blueberry Commission have each submitted parallel specialty crop block grants to do a 3-year Southeast Asia blueberry promotion effort. This is a if, but if all 3 of us get these grants, we'll have collectively $1 million to spend over 3 years, and we're gonna hit these 4 countries plus Thailand. We think Southeast Asia is going to be a great and big outlet for our blueberries. My goal, in that proposal, I said by the time we get this done, we're going to be sending 1 to 2 million pounds a year to each of those countries. But our biggest export activity in 2019 was a marketing effort in Vietnam in cooperation with Oregon. Sometimes you might think like Oregon is something that is a region that we're in competition with, or they're our competition, and perhaps in some ways they are, but I don't see it that way. I think that we got this big mound of blueberries, and it's half Oregon and half Washington, and I really should include British Columbia with that really, really big pile of blueberries. And I'm going to give you an example of how this worked. We did a promotion with them. I'm not saying we sold 1 million pounds because of what we did, but I can tell you we influenced this. So we got into Vietnam. It was too late for California to send fruit there, and so it was Washington and Oregon. And when it opened up, the only place that really had significant blueberries to send over there was Washington and Oregon. And there's over 1 million pounds sold, and the only reason it was only 1 million pounds was we didn't know, and the importers over there did not know. They did not anticipate. We did not anticipate how much interest there was in our blueberries, and so we didn't have blueberries set aside. There was some labeling issues. We're gonna more than double blueberry sales into Vietnam next year. It wouldn't surprise me if the United States goes 3 or 4 million pounds. It's just because California is going to come in, and then Oregon and Washington is going to come in right behind California. But I just want to show you some pictures from that promotional effort. This was the logo that we created. Brian Austin created that. You can see he put Oregon first. But Ho Chi Minh City, that's Saigon. We go in there, and this is the ag attaché that comes in and gives some in-country information, tells us which way's up, and then we start pounding the pavements. We go to these. This is an importer that has a store that people come in and buy fruit, and we meet with these folks and just talk about blueberries. We go visit people that are distributing blueberries. What's interesting is, so Vietnam has a centrally planned economy, and the government controls everything. And it was against the law to import fruit into that country. Now, this is a fruit eating country, but they eat tropical fruits. But whatever the process was, apples, they got apples in, then they got cherries, then they got pears, then they got table grapes. You can only import those four fruits into Vietnam until they allowed blueberries. But what the deal is, there's these importers that are very familiar with Washington fruit. There's Stamil. This is some cherries that not far from my house that are over there, and we're working with the same importers that are very familiar with Washington fruit. And there's some Oregon blueberries here, and we're just coming in right behind Washington fruit. They know Washington cherries, Washington apples, Washington pears, and they are ready to buy Washington blueberries. And there's more people. There's old Brian Oslin. There's Rebecca Weber, Department of Ag, Oregon Department of Ag, and there's this guy right here. There's Aaron Bagwell. And why would Aaron Bagwell, a crop advisor, be going over to open up? He better not be teaching them how to grow blueberries over there, but there he is. But we went to grocery stores. This is a guy that has, he's the, I don't know his exact position, but this is he's got the second largest grocery store chain, and they're doing promotions of blueberries, and he's dropping a price on blueberries. He can import directly, and the other importers are not happy because he's lowered the price on the blueberries. And so grocery stores are selling them. We also went, this is a chef that made blueberry muffins. This is a Michelin, I don't know, a star chef that they have working for him, doing blueberries. This is another promotion that they're doing over there. This is another grocery store. And it's really interesting when you see these people here, they've never seen a blueberry before. The blueberries are not something they know about. It is completely foreign to these folks. They come over, they look at them, and in they go. And we just saw these people coming in, and this would get picked clean, and they put more out, and they would get picked clean. It was I've never seen anything like it. It was at one point kind of like almost a feeding frenzy. We also went and met with, this is like their USDA APHIS. These are the folks that we were negotiating with to try and get fruit in. And we'd gone over there the year before and said, look, you guys got to get off a dime. People want your fruit. We want to sell it to you. And we met with them, and we went and met with them after we got it to thank them for this, because we're thinking at some point there's going to be some problem. They're going to find a worm in the fruit or an SWD, and all hell's going to break loose. And it's just kind of relationship building with those folks to thank them. It also kind of grease the skids and build the relationship in case there's problems in the future. And look at this guy right here, man. That is a sharp looking guy. And the reason that he went over there, Aaron Bagwell went over there, a crop advisor went on this trip, he paid his own way, is he was representing, he went over there, he has a grower that's wanting to export, and this is me saying, hey, we're here, blueberries are here, and they had just opened up like the week or 2 weeks before, and these are all buyers or representatives for buyers, and I had to pay for this, and it was $75 a head, and they said there were going to be 50 people there, and I said, 50 people, $75 a head, that's about the limit on my credit card, and I had to pay for that. And they brought in more people came in, more people came. There ended up being over 100 people there. There was so much interest, and I didn't even have enough money on my credit card. Brian Austin and I had to split the cost on this one, but there were so many people here. And I said, hey, if you don't have someone lined up for blueberries, this is on a Monday night. If you don't have someone for blueberries lined up, let me know. Where's Aaron at? That was Monday. There was a line of people talking to him. And by Tuesday, the next day, the buyers and that grower had lined out a deal and they shipped blueberries. We went over there. Those guys did not have anyone lined up to buy their blueberries. And by Tuesday, the second day of that trip, those guys we hooked up the buyer. And that is a company that had never exported one piece of fruit. So it was a very, very successful trip. And there's pictures and pictures and pictures that we could show you. There's more government, meeting with government people. But it's just very, very interesting about these folks. They come in, they look, and they take it. It was very, very successful. This is Vinmart. Vinmart is the largest grocery store chain. They've got 2,000 convenience stores. They're like Walmart and Costco together. We got summons in to meet with a guy that was at Vinmart, and he said, we're not getting enough blueberries. I can't remember what the number, do you remember you weren't at that meeting when we went with that guy, but he says, we brought in a ton of blueberries. We sold out in the first day and we only had it in 5 stores. He says, I need 10 tons of blueberries every day. And when we sell out of that, send us frozen. Now, it turns out the guy was kind of BSing us a little bit. But they actually couldn't handle. That's what they wanted. That's what they thought they could sell. They did not have the logistical capacity to handle that much. But there is a tremendous potential for blueberries in Vietnam. And so in our promotional effort there, see this guy? This is a U.S. ambassador to Vietnam. This guy showed up and I've never had this many cameras in my face, but there was 10, 15 of these and 50 microphones or tape recorders. I don't know how our contractor, who you don't see here, this is a guy that says he wants 10 tons of blueberries a day, but Francis Lee is our contractor. That's him right there. But there was a scrum. I mean, I've never seen so much interest and enthusiasm. And all these are radio stations and TV stations that are broadcasting about blueberries. It was a crazy situation. Then we had another one of these buyer meetings that Brian Austin took the lead on. And these are all people that buyers. And when you look at this and you look at that other one and you look and see that there's interesting things. Most of them are women, and they all look like they're about 20 years old. That's an amazingly young country there. The average age is 30 years. You go to these places, a lot of the businessmen are women, and they're young. It's amazing. You look at this and it's like, is this for real? Are these people serious? Yeah, we're negotiating deals like with people that are 25 years old and talking about trying to move 500,000 pounds of blueberries. God, just meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. So anyway, it was just terribly, terribly successful. And I hope we're going to try and replicate this in the Philippines, because we're opening up the Philippines. So also, I just want to point out, we do a lot of work with, Oregon, California, British Columbia, Blueberry Council. Eric Gerbrandt and I are trying to work out a way where we're going to try and coordinate our research proposals and research efforts between British Columbia and the U.S., also North American Blueberry Council, U.S. High Bush Blueberry Council. So these are all very, very good cooperators. I'm out of time. I didn't touch on 50 topics, but I'm going to take a break and see if anybody has a couple questions or comments. Great. Hey, Daryl, and you didn't even ask a question. Thank you. Thank you very much, Daryl. Any comments before I move on? So I'm sorry.
Are they How are they shipping to Vietnam, by air or ocean?
By air. It's all by air. I have a feeling that in time, as our comfort level increases, that they will go by ship, by containers. I know people are going containers into Hong Kong and some other places. No one's willing to go by container yet. All right, I'll be around today. You can ask me some questions. I am going to switch over, and I would like Rob Dollywall to come up. I've got a plaque for you. Come up here, Rob. Rob stepped down from the board after 9 years and 3 terms, and I've got a plaque for his service to the industry. Here you go. Rob hates being up in front of everybody. Here, take this. Yep.
If I knew I was spending 9 years to get a plaque from Alan, I would have never done it. But no, I just appreciated being on the board and serving the industry. And it's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback. So if you don't make it to meetings, all I can say is make sure you get on the board and make it to the meetings. So appreciate representing the growers here.
All right, thank you.